Hey guys, so if you're new here, hi, I'm Kayla. If you're not new here and you missed my last video, I did just split dye my hair pink and orange. Let's talk about it for a second. It's fire. I will link that video down below. I use the X Mondo color line and I'm obsessed with the vibes. But regardless, today we're here to talk about Keemstar. Now, I have never really talked about Keemstar on my channel before. I mean, I haven't been doing commentary for that long, and I don't tend to follow him. I know he is not a good person, has been involved in a lot of drama, which you know, involves anti-Semitism, racism, calling everyone in the world a P word, which is ironic because today we're here to talk about the fact that he is 39 years old and he is dating a 20-year-old. I'm going to talk about Trisha Paytas' video on it, his response, and then I wanted to cover this because I want to have kind of a larger discussion at the end about age gaps in relationships, what's okay, what's not, what we think, because I don't know if there is a finite answer for this, but I think it's an interesting topic and I thought we'd chat about it. So before I get into this video, subscribe to my channel. I upload twice a week and you should subscribe because we're fun here, okay? Thank you. Thank you very much. I also think I'm always crooked. Is that straighter or crookeder? Is crookeder a word? I don't know. So yeah, basically what happened was Keemstar has a podcast with FaZe Banks called Mom's Basement, and on his recent episode, he talked about how he's dating a new girl and she is 20 years old. And I don't think anybody really said much about it until Trisha Paytas has a new series on her channel. Since she left Frenemies, she started Enemies, where she talks about problematic people and issues in the YouTube community. And you know, I have never liked Trisha Paytas. She is a problematic troll. And it just is very hard to take her seriously because she has done so much shitty shit. I mean, even the whole Frenemies drama, like, she did so much wrong there and, like, lived for exploiting drama from her own family for views. However, I do have to give her some sort of props because it seems like her Enemies podcast is kind of taking the parts of Frenemies that she liked, which was exposing people who are doing shitty things, who are using their power for poor things, who are abusing people, and she is shedding a light on that. And as much as I don't like Trisha Paytas, I have to give her props for that. We'll see how long it lasts, but I do appreciate that that's what she's using her platform for right now, because I never really watched Frenemies religiously, but I did tune in for stuff like the Seth situation, the David Dobrik situation, and kind of more of the, like, real issues they spoke about on the podcast. And I do appreciate that really she's the person that shed light on this, or else I think it would have just kind of slid under the radar because I think Keemstar's fans obviously are not going to hold him accountable. So in her video, Trisha starts talking about Keemstar and she says that he met his girlfriend at a meetup. And I did listen to the podcast clips and she's not wrong. He did say he met her at a meetup. Trisha also talks about, you know, a big thing we talk about when it comes to James Charles and other influencers is power imbalance. When you are dating someone who is your fan, it is a power imbalance. Now, Keemstar does explain it in the podcast that she wasn't the fan. What happened was he had a meetup with Fuzi and she came with her friend who was a super fan, who was obsessed with Keem, and she was just there for, like, moral support, and then that's how he met her. He also claims that she doesn't know anything about his online persona or what he does, but I mean, like, when you meet someone, because your friend tells you they're YouTube famous, you can easily Google them and see how famous they are, and, like, that automatically gives you a power imbalance even if you don't think it's there. Also, a side note, most of the video we'll be talking about Keem because I think he's the one in the wrong, not the girlfriend, but, like, if I invited my friend to come to a meetup with me because I was obsessed with a YouTuber and then my friend started dating him, I feel like I'd be mad. Thoughts? Thoughts. But anyway, so yeah, he talks about how she's not the one that does this. And also in the video, he basically insinuates that him and Fuzi meet girls at meetups to hook up with, which, like, is wrong. And I think that's why he just kind of glosses over it because, you know, he says, like, well, you know, she wasn't a fan. Just to be clear, she's not a fan. And like Trisha says in her video, he kind of hits on all the points trying to debunk them while talking about it on the podcast because I think he knows the kind of hate he's going to get, because, which is just wild because he's the kind of person that also accuses everyone else of being a predator while he's doing this, and yes, she is of legal age and we will get there, but I mean, I think we can all realize, we can all say that many of us think large age gaps are sus, at least. And again, even if she wasn't the fan, you met her at a fan meetup, so like that's already like bad faith on what I think, at least, because she knows you're famous. She can easily Google you. She knows the like power and fame you have. Even if she like doesn't watch your content, it's not hard to look at your subscriber counts to see that you have a Spotify original podcast and know that you have money. So in Trisha's video, she talks about her own personal experiences dating older men when she was younger, and says, you know, a lot of what Keemstar always does is say like, oh, well, you did this and you did that. And she's like, yeah, I know, but she's like, and doing that stuff when I was younger fucked me up. I did it because I didn't have a good relationship with my father. And she talks about why young girls date older men. And I don't think it's fair to only say it's daddy issues. I think that a lot of it is just immaturity, and, you know, it's like, younger people are more easy to take advantage of. That is just factual. As Trisha says in her video, women's brains do not fully develop until they're 25 years old. So, and that is like a proven scientific fact. So she's not wrong there. Her brain is not fully developed, and like we have all done dumb and stupid shit when we are young. And at least if you're doing it with somebody else who's your age, it won't feel like you were taking advantage of later. Just saying. So she talks about, you know, power dynamic, that even if she's not a fan, there's still a power imbalance because he has money and social status and age on her, and with age comes wisdom. And, you know, Trisha also talks about the legality versus morality. Trisha personally believes that the age of consent should be 25 because in Canada, we have something called, I think it's called a staggered age of consent, which means like you can consent with somebody like under the age of 18, I think you can consent with somebody within 2 to 3 years. Like 12-year-olds can consent with like 13 and 14-year-olds. 16-year-olds can consent with like 15 to like 18-year-olds. And so it's something like that. If I can find the infographic, I'll put it here. I saw it on Twitter a few weeks ago. Cause like, I agree that like making the age of consent 16 is so that people don't get in trouble for assault when they're younger, when they have, like, say an 18-year-old guy has sex with a 16-year-old girl. Could still be considered creepy, but like when you're in a relationship and you're both in high school, like I can see that happening. And so we've made in Canada at least staggered age of consent laws so that like it at least makes sense. And I kind of agree with Trisha that the staggered age of consent laws maybe should go up to 25, because then at least you could only have sex with people who are like within 5 years of your age. But we'll get into that. You know, Trisha also says, I don't care if it's legal. There's a difference between legality and morality, and I 100% agree with this. I think throughout history we have seen many laws come into play that have been overturned, that were legal at one time that should not have been. Women couldn't have credit cards. There was no such thing as the R word between a married couple. It wasn't, I believe that they didn't take that law away until like 1996, that a husband couldn't R word his wife. So, you know, there are tons of laws out there that are unjust, and just because something is legal does not make it okay. And I also, whenever any man brings up this argument, I always say to keep in mind that these laws were made by creepy old men. You know, men have been in positions of power in all of our societies. They have been the one making rules and making legislation, and it has been seen throughout history that men date younger women. I have opinions on it, but we'll stick with the drama for now. So then Trisha basically says, like, if there's something wrong with you if you can't find someone who's your own age. She calls Keemstar a perv, a creep, and says he's disgusting. And I do think that, like, you know, Keemstar says he's mentally 25, but I just have to say that if you are a 40-year-old man, he's 39, so I'm just gonna call him 40, I don't care. If you are a 40-year-old man and you are dating someone that's 20, like, this is nothing on the girl, it's not her fault. She is the young one, she is the one being taken advantage of. I'm sorry, it's just the way it goes. And there is something wrong with you if you have something in common with a 20-year-old. I am 32, and I can tell you right now, I don't have jack shit in common with a 20-year-old. Like, at all. So, like, it's just like, I have to agree with Trisha on some of these points that it is suspicious. So then Keemstar responds, he posts an Instagram video where he says his girlfriend happens to be 20, like, okay. Like, you couldn't tell from looking at her. You just started dating this girl and was like, oh shit, she's accidentally 20. Talks about how Trisha dated older men before, because of daddy issues, but his girlfriend doesn't have daddy issues. She has a great relationship with her family, blah, blah, blah. And then Keemstar does one of his favorite things, which is whataboutisms. He starts talking about the fact that Trisha was hitting on younger boys. You know, there's tweets of her hitting on Justin Bieber when he was younger and stuff. And like, this is just like Gabby Hanna. Just because somebody else did something awful does not mean that your awful thing is less awful. And also, Trisha hasn't done this in a long, long, long time. Trisha has talked about how she actually likes older men, and like, she has done some outrageous shit because she is a professional troll. I mean, he has also been posting tweets and stuff about Trisha, like basically hitting on him and posting sexually explicit things about him online throughout the years. Do I think it's right? Absolutely not, but I don't think it takes away from her point at all. So like, I'm not here for his whataboutisms. Then he talks about how his girlfriend's not in it for money because she has a job and she has her own stuff going on. But I think it's important to note that on the podcast, he says she's a server. And like, no shade to servers anywhere, but I think we all know that that is not a stable job. That is not a job that pays well. That is not like a career. And he made like, and like, again, nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying the way he tried to make it sound in this video response was that like, she was like an entrepreneur who owned her own home and she was like killing it. But like, she's a server. And I'm not trying to say she's in it for his money at all. I'm just saying that her job leads to power imbalance because there is an inequality in wealth there, just straight up. Like, as a server, you're making minimum wage, especially right now. The economy is a hot mess. So I just think it's like an interesting point to make that like, he's making it sound like she has this stable up and coming career. And like, I mean, we've all been there. When I was 20, I worked at a fucking grocery store. So like, no shade to her at all, but I also wasn't dating a 40-year-old man with an 11-year-old daughter. Then of course he makes my favorite argument, which is it's legal. She's not underage. And again, no one is calling you a pedo or anything like that. We're just saying that like, it's kind of gross. It can be gross and still be legal. I am aware it's legal. She is an adult, but I still don't have to like it. And then just some other information from the podcast that I think wasn't mentioned in either of these videos that I think is important. I mean, first of all, his podcast with FaZe Banks is disgusting. Like, the way they talk about it is disgusting. Like, the way that Keemstar is talking about a woman he's dating that he claims to respect is gross. And especially considering he said that she doesn't know who he is, what his online persona is, and says that he plays like the bad guy Keemstar online. And that like, if she was to go online, people would hate on her for that. But like, if she doesn't know what your online persona is, did you tell her you're going to be talking about your sex life on this podcast, where you talk about the fact that you had sex with her without a condom, and then FaZe Banks says, oh yeah, good for you? Because apparently we are against condoms and nobody asks about birth control at all, which is like, cool, great, I guess. Also the whole like, I play a bad guy online thing, like, do you, or is this really you? Because like, you post so many Instagram and Twitter videos of you just walking around your house bitching, complaining and stuff. I'm just not sure if that's a character. I think it's just you. Then he talks about, again, how he's not going to post her online because he doesn't want her to get hate. Like, he told her not to follow him online, and that like, he doesn't want her to get hate online. But then he starts posting pictures of her. He's posted 2 pictures of her so far. You can't really see her whole face, but she looks young as fuck. And one is of her in his Corvette, and one is of her from behind. And it's just like, I know he's just posting these. Like, in his whole video, he's talking about how like, he's having the time of his life and like, he's happy. And like, I know he's posting these to be like, look how hot my girlfriend is. Look at what I got. Look what I was able to catch. And it's just like, it's just like cringy and weird to me. And also like really screams midlife crisis. Like, he just got out of a 13-year relationship recently. And again, he has an 11-year-old daughter, which I would just like to point out that his daughter is closer in age to his girlfriend than he is. And like, if you don't see something wrong with that, I can't help you. So I kind of wanted to, I mean, that's the general tea. There's not a whole lot more to talk about other than a bunch of people going back and forth about whether or not Keemstar is gross. H3H3 podcast also talked about it. Hila and Ethan talked about it and basically said it's gross. And I mean, I kind of see the point. Like, again, like as a 32-year-old person, I have nothing in common with a 20-year-old, like at all. I would not be able to date a 20-year-old. And you know, I think a lot online we talk about age gaps, and it's not just Keemstar. There are tons of celebrities. Look at Leonardo DiCaprio. This man, I don't know if he's still dating her, but his last girlfriend, Camilla something, he knew her since she was 11 and then started dating her when she was 19. Oh, by the way, he knew her since she was 11 because he was friends with her stepfather. And I'm pretty sure he was 40 when they started dating and she was 19. So like, disgusting. Men stay being creepy. It's always men dating younger women. You know, I looked up some stats and like majority of huge age gap relationships are men dating younger women. And you know, I tried to look up statistics, but a lot of the statistics are focused on the age gap itself, which is like, you know, they're like, you know, anyone with a 10 to 15 year, like an over 10, like a 10-year age gap. But my issue is, you know, there are times when a 10-year age gap is fine. I personally subscribe to the divide your age in half and plus 7 rule. I think it really does work out well. So for example, I am 32, so if I was to divide that in half, that would put it at 16 plus 7. Ew, that would put it at 23. I still could never date a 23-year-old. But like for Keemstar, that would put his minimum age at 27 that he should date. And I think that that kind of works out because the issue isn't really the age gap itself, it's the age of the younger person. For me personally, the issue is, you know, if a 50-year-old dude is dating a 35-year-old woman, that's a 15-year age gap and I don't really care. But it's because a 35-year-old person has like history and like a lived experience, and again, their brain is more fully developed, whereas someone like Keemstar's girlfriend is 20 years old, she can't even legally drink yet, she can't even go to the bar with you yet, and she is not fully developed. And I think the issue for me comes when the younger person in the relationship has like just basically become legal, and that's when things get wishy-washy. That's when you get into the territory of grooming. Obviously, I don't think Keemstar is grooming. I'm just talking about age gaps in general. And you get into this area of immaturity versus maturity, where the reason older men generally date younger women is because older women won't take their shit. Women who are 35 to 40 are not out here trying to put up with Keemstar's immature bullshit, which is why he has to date someone who is just legal, because older women have more expectations because they have more experience, because they've been through more relationships and they have life experience and expectations, whereas a younger woman will look at you and be like, oh cool, you're like rich and you have like this cool job and like you have this money and this sweet house, and like it's more than men her age have, so she automatically thinks that's great without weighing into the power imbalances. And I do think it's a tricky situation, because while I think what Keemstar is doing is gross, I also have this internal struggle about taking away a woman's autonomy and decision making. I remember when Bad Baby turned 18 and she got an OnlyFans account, and like men were counting down to her being 18, and she made like a couple $1 million when she launched her OnlyFans account. And a lot of people started having a conversation about how maybe they should raise the age of consent for OnlyFans to 21 so that like creepy men aren't like counting down until someone's legal. Ugh, disgusting. But then I'm like, well, that's not fair. Like, it's not Bad Baby's fault that men are disgusting and waiting for her to be 18. Like, she should still be allowed to do with her body what she pleases. And that's where I get into an internal debate about, yeah, I think age gaps are creepy, but then I also get into this area where we often infantilize young women and try to take their decision-making skills away. That's just like the way society is. You know, when girls are like 16 to 17, we talk about them like they're adults, but then once they're 18 to 20, we're all of a sudden infantilizing them and saying that they're not old enough to do these certain things. And you know, you'll get a lot of people in this realm saying stuff like, oh, like I dated a 45-year-old when I was 20 and it was totally fine, and I did this when I was 20 and it was totally fine. And it's like, yeah, sure, but you'll also get the same amount, if not more people saying, yeah, I dated a 45-year-old and it was toxic and predatory. And I just think that, like, I don't know, I side-eye men who want to have relationships with girls who are 20 years younger than them and have just become legal. Like, there is something about it that is disgusting, and that's just like my personal feelings. Of course, it's not illegal, and again, I don't like putting it on the women and taking away their right to choose what to do with their bodies, but at the same time, it just like, I just think that like more often than not, these situations are harmful and predatory. So I would just like to not see them happen at all. That's my personal opinion. Like I said, I really do go back and forth about it, but overall, I do think it's like kind of gross. I would love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about age gap relationships in general? I do think we could also have an entire conversation about how if the genders were swapped, people would not care as much because there is a double standard in our society, but that's a conversation for another day. I think that like, I really do like the divide your age in half and add 7 rule. Because again, I don't care about the size of the age gap necessarily. I care about how much closer to birth the other person is. And I care about when, you know, girls or the younger person in the relationship is like 18, 19, 20, where they have very little lived life experience, where they're still coming into their own. They don't really know who they are yet. They're still trying to figure out life. And then you have a 40-year-old man child who has an 11-year-old daughter, which like also makes me side-eye, because like, what does his poor daughter think that this girl is like 10 years older than him that he is dating? Oh, I'm sorry, 9 years older than him that he is dating. Like, that can't be good for her. So yeah, I would love to know down below what you guys think about this whole situation. You know, Keemstar specifically, or just age gaps in general, and what you guys think. Like I said, I know there are some people that say they've had healthy relationships like this, but I also think there's a lot of people that think they've had healthy relationships, and then when they look back at that relationship years later, they're like, I think that was toxic. So I would love to know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!